Ether has successfully completed the merge after years of anticipation, but ETH is down. The number two crypto has lost 25% of its market value over the past week, after the cryptocurrency market had lost $165 billion from its market capitalization in a week. Bitcoin dropped below $20,000 and is still struggling to pull itself back above that threshold, leading market analysts to try and predict the maiden asset's future movements. One of them is Gareth Soloway, the chief market strategist at InTheMoneyStocks.com, who believes that Bitcoin might drop further to a new lows, as he told Stansberry Research's Daniela Cambone in an interview aired on September 20. The market remains bearish as widespread losses across risk assets continue to dictate sentiment in a week where major monetary policy actions could provide fresh impetus for bears. For Bitcoin, that outlook is likely to see its value dump even further after yesterday's bearish retest of support near $18,250. Gareth Soloway also has predictions for Ether, Solana, and Cardano. Before we listen to him, we want to use this opportunity to thank all our viewers and subscribers. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We appreciate you so much.
So I think Bitcoin still has another leg lower to 12 to 13,000. I think the stock market likely by end of year or early 2023 will tag the March 2020, well, the highs just before the March 2020 COVID collapse. So you're talking about the S&P downside to like 3,400 or so. The key for gold's outperformance is going to be when you hear the Fed pivot. The Fed pivot is going to be key because inflation's not going to be down to 2% or under, and it's going to tell you that the Fed is now more worried about the economy than about inflation.
But you basically said, you tweeted, look, it was a classic sell the news event. Ether down, as we're speaking, also down 5% on the day. Thoughts on Ether?
Yeah, so I think Ethereum, right? So you have to look at it as the rally from the lows in June. It was about 100+%. And a lot of that was expectation of this merge coming. And really what we see, and we see this with so many stocks as well, is that people buy into these stocks on anticipation of great earnings, and then they report great earnings, and then people are like, okay, well, what's my next reason to own this? I'm up X amount of dollars. Let's sell it. Let's take profits. We'll revisit this in the future. And I think that's what's going on with Ethereum. As much as I love the merge, and I think what it will end up doing will be a positive for Ethereum, it still doesn't solve the immediate issue of the risk and the fear of crypto right now with the Fed being so aggressive. So you're going to see it come down here. I have a major technical level on my chart around $1,250. You can see it just kissed that level right down here coming from this pivot. If it gets through there, you could retest sub 1,000. But ultimately, again, you get down sub 1,000, and I think you start accumulating this for the long term very slowly because it could go lower. But again, you have to think about the thesis with the merge in the long term, but then understand that fear rules the day in the near term, and that's what we're dealing with the Fed right now and the strong dollar.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to go through a laundry list of some coins that I'd like to go over with you. Where does Solana go from here?
Solana. So this is where we're getting into a little trickier market action too. So in terms of the chart, Solana is still holding its $26 low down here. So that's still okay. It looks like it's kind of creating some sort of base right now. So you want to see it hold 26. If it holds 26, I think you could easily trade back up as high as $60. But I do caution that for us to get up to $60, we need to see a Fed pivot, and we need to see the dollar start to pull back. So, I mean, that really is the ruling factor. And then long-term Solana, just keep in mind that it's new technology. You have to always be a little careful that something newer and better doesn't supplant it. And I think that's just the one concern. So for me, just to be clear, when I'm looking at what I'm holding long-term in terms of crypto, I'm mainly focusing on Bitcoin with a little bit of Ethereum, but I'm still not willing to commit long-term holds to Solana, Avalanche, and some of these others yet.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Avalanche, if you don't mind pulling up that chart for us.
So Avalanche, much like Solana, still holding this low here.
Yeah.
And again, I think the key is this 1350 level. You can see it's still above this, kind of went up. It's coming down. We want to see a double bottom hold right here. So again, I would be a buyer in this range all the way down to about 1350 to 14 bucks. And then if it broke below that level, that's where I would start to be concerned it would head to $10 or so. But again, same thing. Your upside, you have great upside potential back to like 30 bucks. I mean, it's almost 100% move off that level. But again, the key, that Federal Reserve pivot and the dollar. Cardano here. So Cardano, I already have a bunch of lines on my chart. You can see this upsloping trend line. So we are holding this support right now. You could argue that you have a little bit of a wedge pattern. Now, wedge patterns, what they tell you, and I'm erasing all the lines except the wedge pattern. Wedge patterns are basically triangles. And price usually stays inside of this until it breaks one way or the other. Whichever way it breaks, that's going to be a big move. That's expected on a technical basis to be a big move. So if it starts to break down, I think at least you test the lows of around 38 cents. If it can break above 50 cents here, then you have upside to maybe 65 to 70 cents there. So again, very interesting to note here. Nice little wedge pattern, but as a trader, you would be on a holding pattern. You would just kind of stay put until you get a break one way or the other.
All right. Anything else that you think is an interesting buy right now that you're eyeing?
Yeah, so I do think there are some interesting, like one stock that I've been kind of perplexed that we haven't got a better bounce on is GSK, GlaxoSmithKline. Pays a beautiful dividend here. And again, you can see how oversold it is to the downside, coming right into support. But bottom line is, guys, beautiful sell-off to the downside. I think this one is, in this market environment, this is one of the safer plays. It pays an awesome dividend, and it's already discounted. Pharmaceuticals, even in a recession, people still need their life-saving drugs. I think this is a definite one to keep an eye on.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Treasury is seeking public opinion on the responsible development of digital assets. Its questions focus on a variety of crypto-related aspects, including decentralized finance, non-fungible tokens, mixers, virtual asset service providers, and the digital dollar. According to the Treasury's document, in particular, the department invites comments on the digital asset-related illicit finance and national security risks, as well as the publicly released action plan to mitigate the risks. Some of the questions open for commenting include: has Treasury comprehensively defined the illicit financing risks associated with digital assets? What are the illicit finance risks related to non-fungible tokens? What are the illicit finance risks related to DeFi and peer-to-peer, P2P payment technologies? What existing regulatory obligations, in your view, are not or no longer fit for purpose as it relates to digital assets? Gareth Soloway also has something to say concerning crypto regulation.
Major point on Bitcoin before we talk Ether and the others. We see all the news headlines regarding the regulation that are coming down the road for Bitcoin. Biden coming out saying that it's basically coming sooner than a lot of us suspected. So what does that mean ultimately for the crypto in your opinion, Gareth?
So for the last year plus, I've been really a proponent of regulation. And the reason I am is that as much as we like the deregulation and kind of this independent currency type thing, if you ever expect big money to come in, and I'm talking about pension funds with trillions of dollars, I mean, just them putting 1% of their assets in Bitcoin would be massively positive for the price of Bitcoin. So I'm coming from the investor standpoint where I want to see the price go up. And the only way you're going to get that is if you get a framework of regulation and people actually know the rules, right? So one of the things in the stock market that I've learned over the years of trading is that the market doesn't necessarily care if it's a positive or a negative. They just don't like not knowing, right? They don't like that ability to not figure out what the rules are. So by getting regulation out there, you create a framework where these institutions can say, okay, now we can play in this field. We can play ball because we know the rules and we feel comfortable investing with our fiduciary responsibility other people's money. So I welcome regulation. I think it's needed. You saw over the last 6 months bankruptcies and shady activities and all this. And investors honestly are scared of crypto in many situations. So I think you have to get this regulation.
But so I'm hearing from you, you don't think the regulation leads to an outright ban. I mean, we saw the other headline that the White House Office of Science and Technology suggesting that Bitcoin could be banned. Is that not a concern for you then?
No, not a concern for me at all, and mainly because there's too many jobs that have been layered on the crypto side of things with the blockchain and everything else, and there's too many big investors even involved in Bitcoin already where I just do not see that happening. So I think, if anything, it's kind of a scare tactic. They're trying to push people to think, oh my goodness, this could happen, and then when they do introduce some stringent regulations, it won't seem so bad. So again, for me, it's a matter of, Biden realizes, and by the way, there's a lot of politicians politicians out there that do invest in Bitcoin and they're big fans of it. These are the politicians that know that they're running up the debt. They know the future of the dollar, and they're big fans of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So they're not going to be looking to ban it. And I think you're going to see that the regulation, whether it's a positive or a neutral or a negative, it's still going to allow for the existence of crypto, just with some rules to follow.
What do you think of Gareth's Soloway interview? Please let us know your opinion in the comments section. Thanks for watching.